Awesome. Thank you so much to everyone who's able to join our conversation today. My name is Laura Waters Brown. I am the director at The Collective here at Wasserman. We are a women's focused division that services our entire company. We focus on supporting our clients in professional women's sports and collegiate sports, but also our clients on the music side of the business, entertainment, so on and so forth. In addition, we also support women in business, and we support women around the world outside of sport. We're really here for women. And today we are privileged and have the honor to bring this amazing group of women to you to really focus in on the solutions of investing in women and what that means, and investing in women's sports, and kind of touch on a few of the hurdles because I fully believe that if we can identify some of the hiccups and the trip ups that people have when it comes to truly understanding what does it mean to invest in women in all of the different ways, it helps us and allows us the opportunity to make those solutions and to come together as a community. So stick with us for the next few minutes. We promise it's going to be an amazing conversation. I can guarantee that part. But I will allow my panelists to introduce themselves, because I think no one is a better cheerleader for yourself than you. So we'll start at the top of my screen, Jasmine, with a quick introduction.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jasmine Maietta. I'm the founder and CEO of Round 21, a brand that pairs artists and athletes to create special edition products. Some of the most rewarding opportunities in my career have been sitting amongst other women and talking about subjects that are meaningful, not just to the business that we're in, but to adjacent businesses as well. And so I'm excited about the next 30 minutes.
Thanks, Jasmine. Angela, you're next up on my screen.
Hi. Hello, everyone. My name is Angela Henderson. I'm the owner of Henderson Strategy Group. And so I say in a nutshell, the athletes I serve are NBA, NFL, and so they get the contracts and I kind of handle the rest. I handle just about everything off the court and field for professional athletes. And part of my job and assignment is to make sure that they are being not just their investments, but also their give back and where they're making an impact. And so we're also very passionate about making sure that they are aligned with women's sports and also being able to contribute to this overall, conversation that we need to continue having to get more equality for women in sports. So excited to be here.
Thanks, Angela. Jaia.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Jaia Thomas. I am a Los Angeles-based sports and entertainment lawyer. I have been a lawyer for about 16 years now. In addition to practicing law, I'm also the founder of a company called Diverse Representation. We are focused on making sure that Black athletes and Black entertainers are hiring Black attorneys, Black agents, Black managers, and Black publicists. And in addition to that, we also curate various diversity programs and initiatives throughout the country. This summer, we launched a new holiday, National Black Women in Sports Day, which is going to be an annual holiday every year, July 7th, where we are celebrating and amplifying Black women in sports. And excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. And just for the audience, the reason why we have such an eclectic group of women is because the conversation of and around investing in women, investing in women's sports, it has multiple variations and verticals and looks different. And so we've got women as business owners. We've got women who are fighting for representation. We've got women who are in the business of sports and work in a male-dominated industry. So I want to give that context for the group as well, because I think a lot of times we can get very singularly focused on what it means to invest in women and women's sports. And so our goal here is to really diversify what that looks like, and maybe get some other questions going in your mind about what am I doing to invest in sports? And so we understand that this group is very focused on solutions and really creating equity. And so our goal here is to really make sure we're giving solution-oriented opinions and thoughts and suggestions, rather than you know, focusing on the areas of women in sports, the issues that we all know and we read in the headlines. So want to just level set that for the conversation. We'll start with maybe a pretty easy question for, I say easy, but a question that all of you are probably asked, and we'll start with Jasmine, but what does it mean to you to invest in women? And then follow it up with, what does it mean to you to invest in women's sports?
Well, I think everything Round 21 and I do operates from this position of one's identity. And at least for my generation, when I was playing sports back in college, professionally overseas, the identity that somebody had as whether they were an athlete or sports fans was typically served by a male-dominated industry. People would say, I'm a Celtics fan. People would say, I'm a LeBron fan, a Kobe fan. Only up until recently within the generation that we know today, like, have there been an alternative, right? And that really now expands beyond Olympic sports where gymnastics and swimming, there was the alternative. So for us, and particularly Round 21, when we think about pairing artists and athletes, it's to create the identity that sports fans, whether they follow the New York Liberty or they love what Brittany Griner stands for, or they appreciate an artist who happens to be a female LGBTQ artist out of LA. Like, we want to be able to serve one's identity through their passion for the game. And that means investing in places where potentially the commercial opportunity is on the rise versus mature, and not comparing the business that is more mature against the potential of a business that's on the rise. And I think that framing for us in terms of where we invest in the people and the properties has established our own benchmark of success, whether it's units sold or earned media achieved. It's against our prior attempt versus comparing it towards potentially another more mature business. It sounds very simple, but often in sports, in particular women's sports, we've heard this a lot. There is a comparison to maybe the men's side of the business. And because we're a startup, we just have never been burdened by that. And it's really serving us well. We interacted with Wasserman through the Brittany Griner drop. And I would argue for Round 21, it's one of the most successful athlete drops that we've had this year. And it was remarkable because it was all around supporting her voice and what she represents on the court and off. And I think the way we presented it as a go-to-market plan and all of the rival teams investing in her product and really celebrating her return to basketball was a good case study for representing the absolute value of an athlete drop versus comparing it to something else that potentially could have been brought to market. So hopefully that provides some tactical approach, but for us, it's about establishing our own benchmarks and really thinking about the identity of the consumer base and the community that we're serving.
I like that. I like that a lot. Jaia, what about you? What does it mean to invest in women and then investing in women's sports? Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you.
Okay.
So great question, because I think a lot of times, especially when it comes to women in sports, I think a lot of people think, I bought one WNBA ticket, I've made my investment, in women in sports. And it's so much bigger than that. And, what we have focused on with regards to diverse representation isn't necessarily the athletes, because while yes, it's important to invest in women athletes, there's so many other women who work in sports that aren't athletes, that need to be amplified, that need to be supported, who oftentimes go unnoticed. And that's really kind of our focusing on, the women agents that no one really talks about, or the women attorneys in sports that no one really talks about. So what we've done and what's been important for me in terms of investing is the hiring piece, making sure that these teams, these leagues, these organizations are hiring women behind the scenes in all facets of their organizations. And one thing that I hear a lot of is, well, I don't know who these people are. I don't know any women who, are in these roles or have these backgrounds. And so what we've really tried to do is shine a light on these women who exist in these spaces, so that a lot of companies and organizations can't use the excuse anymore of like, I don't know who they are, how do I locate them? And so that's kind of the approach we've taken, is really focusing on the hiring piece, making sure women are being hired in all facets of sports and sports adjacent roles. So.
Thank you. Angela, what about you? Same question.
So I'm gonna just echo everything that Jaia said and add a couple things to it, because I am part of what her company represents, right? So I am a Black woman that is in this very male-dominated space, especially on the finance side. I think my world, it's very few people that, I'm gonna walk into a room if we're having a conversation about vetting a large deal, or we're coming to the table with VCs and other people that we need to talk to that run the world of sports. You're often going to find yourself the either only woman or certainly the only minority woman in that space. And so what it takes is I know for me personally, what I've done is make sure that I look out and mentor and also bring into conversations other women in sports that I know. So we're constantly either meeting and having lunch, or just having like a roundtable discussion about certain things. Living in Atlanta gives me a leg up on that, certainly. And we've had a really good time of bringing together and nurturing relationships, and making sure that when the conversation comes to a point where you are in a room where you can be the voice, you can amplify women in that space, that you take that opportunity and actually put that person, bring their name up, champion another woman, say what their company does, say if they're, like Jaia said, if they are a lawyer or a manager or another agent, and you think there's someone that it would be good for that person, oftentimes you're going to be the only person in the room that would have been able to give that person's name as a recommendation. That they're qualified. These other people don't know. And I do feel that if we take every opportunity to really just speak for the women that don't have the placement or the voice in those rooms and in those conversations, it goes a very long way. And then also just in terms of for the male players, so any of the other male leagues, there are always opportunities for them to take a stand or be involved in something, and their platforms and their influence can absolutely make the biggest difference if just encouraged to say, okay, it doesn't, even if it's like once or, twice a year, sometimes their platforms are that large that just that one time them speaking up on an issue concerning a woman or a woman athlete, that could go a very, very long way.
So many really great themes, and I had this look of just awe, because there are so many different topics that we can double tap into from all of you. But what I'm hearing you say is there is this level of intentionality to investing in women. There is this level of variety, meaning there are so many different ways, and it looks different on ways in which companies and businesses can invest in women. If I am a organization or a company, or I work at a company who isn't traditionally in the sports space, but I want to be an advocate because I believe in the trajectory, we're seeing the business case for women's sports. Now, we've all known on this call, the power that is in women's sports. But if I go back to my boardroom and no one is a traditional fan of sports or hasn't really ever watched women's sports, what do I tell them, or how do I get them to say, we have a budget, we should use this to invest in women's sports? What do I tell them? Jaia, can I start with you on that one?
That's a good question. Let me think about it for a second. I'm going to toss it to somebody else first. So that's a great question.
Okay, Jasmine or Angela, feel free, hop in.
Yeah, I'll go. I mean, in my opinion, operating from a position where I need to convince someone is really a tricky position. I think experiencing I mean, sports is so emotional. It's a behavioral experience. You go, there's rituals. I have experienced recently a pre-playoff New York Liberty game that was sold out, and it was electric. And it wasn't because it was a WNBA game. It was because it was sports, and it was because of Sabrina Ionescu, and it was because of the energy Breanna Stewart brings. And I think that there are ways to encourage, whether it's within the corporate structure of like a happy hour or an offsite, or tickets are actually fairly affordable, particularly around WNBA basketball, as well as NWSL, where you could do a bit of a team offsite and actually understand the culture of the experience and the people that go there. That helps create the foundation for a dialogue around the white space of creating an experience with these fans that isn't perpetuated by decades and decades of other brands coming into the space with for example, a financial services company trying to get into sports as an asset to drive connection, where like a Fidelity or a Morgan Stanley have had 10 years of sponsorship. Coinbase is an active partner of Round 21's, bridging their sport properties and fan engagement that ultimately needs to open wallets. But we do it in a way through these pre-game experiences with the New York Liberty actually and the New York Knicks that is more of a human experience. And I don't think that Coinbase went into that lightly. Just like writing a check, you have to understand the ritual of sports and where your brand can kind of intersect. But my first rule of thumb would be to have them experience it first before you ever try to have a conversation about it.
That's definitely a great solution. Looking at your corporate outings and your company outings, right? Does your company have season tickets to the Knicks? Does your company have are you hosting potential clients at the men's sports space? And how about doing the same thing, but at a women's sporting event, right? Because to your point, to experience it is to really engulf. And I think smart business and marketing, if I can get you to have an emotional connection to my product, you're gonna naturally come back on your own. So it's not always about the really big and loud actions or solutions, which we all love. Hey, go big or go home. But sometimes it is, to your point, let's take the new potential client to a Chicago Sky game. Let's take them to an Angel City FC stadium, like to a game, and experience it. The business will get done. The conversation will be had, but we're changing what it means to, and looks like, to invest, and we're bringing someone along with us. So I love that point. Angela, I kind of want to tweak that question for you a little bit, because as a woman in sports, working in sports and working with male athletes, how are you bringing a business decision that is or how would you bring a business decision that is investing in women's sports, or investing in using a woman-owned company as a vendor or contractor? How are you bringing that in conversation to your clients? And is that even an issue?
Yeah, I would say that it certainly is not an issue, because of course they've chosen me to represent them in that way. So they have no problem understanding the competency of women in this space. And it really is all built on relationships and what you've been able to do, and how, for me, the numbers stack up, right? The numbers are the numbers. Every time I'm gonna sit and analyze, if I'm analyzing any deal, right, we already have our core metrics of what we need to look for and what makes sense for the player and their family. A lot of times women-led businesses are even more dynamic and amazing in what they're doing. So there's no shortage of wonderful women-led businesses that are always worthy of the same level of attention and investment in this space. And women are going to constantly be doing amazing things in the space of the sports business. So I feel like as long as they're given an eye, to look at it. I just had a meeting the other day. We're doing another investment that's going to be in a lot of Walmarts across the Southeast. And at the table, it got brought up, one of the vendors, they were looking for another vendor. In that moment, I was able to give a suggestion for a vendor that might work for what they were asking. And sometimes it's just as simple, as that. It's not that women don't have the same, what I call a viable product. The viability is there. And so if it makes sense and it meets all of the parameters that, that we're looking for, that's something that, can be passed on in the vetting process. And then ultimately, I'm the one that makes the decision on whether we move forward with it or not. And so having someone that is also a woman in that space, there's never a deterrent on any decision that we make, simply because, it's a woman in business. To me, I'm always excited and proud to see those things come across my desk. So we're going to continue to invest even more in women's businesses.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And part of it too, and I love that there are all these mentioning different ways of what it means to invest in women, right? Like for you, it was being aware and having knowledge of vendors and companies. It's not about settling or going with a less than viable option. It's simply about being aware of what is out there. To be successful, we need the best, regardless of where it is and who it is. And to your point, oftentimes there is a woman-led business or vendor that can do that. So I think that is a great solution. Being aware and challenge yourself. I think all of us have a responsibility to know good business, know good partners, right? And so that we're able to be in those situations when someone's looking for a solution and you can say, I have a company, I have a vendor that can solve for us. They just so happen to be a woman-owned company, right? So I think that's a great point as well. And because we're doing a theme here of the tweaking of the original question, Jaia, I got to tweak the question for you, obviously, right? She was like, I was prepared, I had it, and you're changing it up on me again. But it's just, there's so much, it's like a circle of amazingness. Jaia, you created a company and a business out of the need for connection and being aware of all of these opportunities and doing exactly what Angela was mentioning, of bringing all these amazing people together. When you have these women in your pipeline and that you're aware of and they're amazing, what are the challenges, or maybe there aren't any, in conversation when someone asks you, I'm looking for an agent, and you provide a list of names of amazing agents that are women, and they're like, no, I really maybe that doesn't happen. But what are some challenges you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, sports is still a male-dominated industry. When you look at the owners of teams, you look at the presidents, you look at all facets of sports, it's still heavily male-dominated, heavily old white male-dominated. So when you're bringing up the names of young women of color or just, women in general, it's still kind of against the norm of what this industry already is. So have definitely run into those challenges just because we're still not the majority in this space, and it's still not the norm to have women in a lot of these leadership positions. And so with that challenge, unfortunately, what we've had to do is almost provide the resumes of a lot of the women that we bring to the table. We can't just say so-and-so is an agent. We have to say so-and-so is an agent who brokered this deal and that deal and brought in this amount of money and then got this client. I feel like a lot of times when we're mentioning women or, putting women on these platforms or trying to get them hired in these different roles by like athletes or leagues, we really have to like run down their resume and their accomplishments to almost prove to people that we can still get the job done, which is unfortunate in 2023, but it's still a thing.
Yeah, it is. And again, it's leading with the facts of the matter, right? And it's not, again, we're not asking to invest in women or to choose women or to support women because it makes you feel good inside. Like we should and be inclusive, yes, because of all of that, but at the same time, it's smart business. And all of you continuously wake up every day and prove that. And I'm so grateful and fortunate, one, to just know all of you, because it makes me feel like I'm somebody out here. But I want to be cognizant of time. So if we could go around the virtual room here and have one thing of how this group of amazing people outside of our virtual panel here, how can they invest in you? What does that look like? How can somebody on this call follow up and say, I want to invest or I want to learn more? I'm going to come to you, Angela, because I'm coming to you first. So what does that mean?
See, I wasn't ready with my mute button because I thought I had some time. But no, again, it's Laura, it's been wonderful being on this panel. So again, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here, and I really do just feel that if we're speaking in terms of corporations and companies that really want to invest in women entering into the sports business on either side, whether they serve directly female athletes or in the male-dominated leagues, training and development, and actually really getting them on a clear path to positions that have influence, impact, and power in these spaces is going to be immeasurable. So I do feel that if they really want to add value, it really starts at the ground floor with really making sure that whoever comes in through their doors is getting proper training in whatever field that they're in. All the industries come together in sports. So there's endless intersection of industries in the sports industry. And if they do have the capacity to train and develop women that come, however they encounter them, if there's any sort of program that would help women get training and development, career development that can really come in, those skills can transfer into the sports business or industry in any sort of way, it really is a very valuable add to their life.
You had a really great point in there. It's not just about the creating these programs or promoting women, right? But it's really important to make sure that they have the support and the backing to make those decisions, right? So you've been trained, you've gone through a program, we're investing in you long-term, but we're also going to make sure that you have the resources around you to do an amazing job. I think that is so important right now, so important. Jaia, I'm going to come to you.
So I think my final thought on this piece would be, I want to emphasize that there's definitely no one size fits all to this approach of investing in women in sports. You know, what may work for one company may not work for another company. So I think it's important for each person, each company to really kind of think about and figure out what would work best for them and what they're most passionate about and what maybe can help them accomplish some of their own goals. And also, we kind of talked about a lot of ways in which, companies and people can support things that are already going on in women's sports. But I also want to challenge people to think outside the box and come up with your own, solutions. If you're seeing a gap in this industry, if you're seeing a void that needs to be filled, I think more people need to, I would love to see more people kind of just jump out there and create their own solution-oriented, company, program, whatever, to kind of fill some of these gaps. And that's what we did with diverse representation. We saw there was a gap. So we created this entire company to fill that gap. For Black Women in Sports Day, we saw that Black women in sports still were being oftentimes ignored, not celebrated enough. So we just kind of made up this new holiday. And so I think there's still so much room for people to be creative and come up with like their own solutions and their own ways to invest. So I just want to mention that as well. In terms of how people can support what we're doing at Diverse Representation, feel free to go to our website, diverserepresentation.com, and you can follow us on social media. We have a ton of different programs throughout the year where you can get involved. We also have a lot of HBCU partnerships, and that's something we didn't really mention a lot on this call. We talked a lot about the professional level in sports, but not really the collegiate level. And so we actually help sponsor some women teams at HBCUs because a lot of them are underfunded. And a lot of those Black girls at HBCUs don't have the funding to participate in their sports programs. And so there's a huge need for that as well in terms of investing in sports. So those are my last 2 cents. And thank you again for having me.
Thank you. And Jasmine, what about you?
Yeah, so we know nothing about this audience. So I've been able to like think through, if you are a leader at a company that wants to leverage sports to drive some sort of engagement with a new community, I would say just reach out to me directly. We, as a brand, have a tremendous number of case studies of how non-endemic companies have leveraged sports, particularly women's sports, to achieve a company goal. That could be any number of goals. So that my email is jasmine@round21.com. If you are a person who understands how kind of sports and commercialization of sports works and have access to people who are looking to drive a new connection to sports fans through giving athletes a voice and through art, which is the way we operate, we are actively growing our distribution mix. So if you know somebody at Panini or Topps or Fanatics Collectibles, if you know people at Fanatics, Dick's Sporting Goods, Shields, who are interested in getting behind the alternative to sports merch, where there's a sense of identity and a give back to the athlete and the artist, we're growing and we're looking for like-minded partners. And then last, if you're going to give a gift this holiday, I literally just spun up a discount code for anyone on here for the next 6 weeks. WBC20, my team is going to kill me, but WBC20 is a 20% discount any order. So your support of us is hopefully support of you getting ahead of the holidays and holiday gifting. That code will expire at the end of October. But that would be an incredible gesture of support for what we stand for, which is really giving a voice to the athletes and artists today through our platform at Round 21. So hopefully that is a way to encourage participation in any number of ways, depending on who you are.
Thank you. It's perfect. Can confirm. Great stuff. Great products. And for everyone on the call who is like, this is a lot of really great information, and I didn't come prepared to take notes because it's at the end of the day and this is a happy hour and no one is doing that. We have amazing resources, research, and insights about the power of women, the economic power of women at wearethecollective.com. You can swing by there. We have public facing reports. If there's anything in there that you'd like more information on, we are more than happy to have conversations about why women. Because to everything that we've said here, our job and goal is not to say invest in women because it's the right things to do. It's smart business. It is literally smart business. And the way things are moving and the way the trajectory is going and the way the economic shift is happening in favor of women, to not have a strategy, to not have a plan, to not focus on that sector is missing out. And so we have lots of information, lots of research, lots of solutions based in research, and would always love to have the conversation. So again, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate the platform. We look forward to all of the change that all of the people on this call that we can't see are going to do. And thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.